Welcome back to another edition of Summer is Coming. Neil, I think this is like our 8th episode, and I only have one question for you. Where the hell were you last week?
I'm sorry. Last week I was just busy. I couldn't be here.
Ah.
So it's good to be back. And it's pretty amazing that it's been so many episodes and we still have people occasionally watch.
Yeah, I think more than occasionally, thankfully. I mean, if it was only like 2 people, maybe we wouldn't do this anymore.
Yeah.
But that's okay. So, Neil, how much Thrones did you get in this week? Or since I last saw you, which is now 2 weeks or several weeks.
Yeah, I didn't get a lot of thrones in. Unfortunately, the timing was bad where I got super busy for 2 weeks right when the core sets came out. So I got in one melee game for about 2 weeks. And then this past week, I played quite a few games. I think all of them against you, actually.
Hmm,
But I played like 6 or 7 games.
interesting. And I can only assume that I stomped you into the ground most of those times.
Some of those times.
Oh, okay. Sorry, that's my bad.
And that does bring me to a quick notice that we do have more games recorded of actual videos of us playing, and I should have those done very shortly. I don't know when this video will be released, but be on the lookout for those.
Yeah, we recorded a couple games, different matchups. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Just so you guys know what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about how many cores you need to be able to play Game of Thrones. We're going to talk about whether it behooves you or not to have a singular focus on one game or split your focus over multiple games. We're going to talk about net decking, and we're going to talk about evaluating a deck once you've built one. Is it good? Is it not? How do you go about doing this? And if we have time, maybe something else. Certainly, I'm going to stump you in a quiz, but that's just a given. I do that every week.
Oh yeah.
I played
Uh,
quite a bit of Thrones as well in this last week. Like you alluded to, we recorded some games with the two of us. Last night at the shop, I got 5 games in, went 5-0 with my new deck. Unbeatable deck. Unbeatable. No, not at
oh
all
man.
unbeatable. But it's a good start for the deck, and definitely has some holes. But we'll cover that later in how you evaluate your deck. All right, Neil. So I'm going to start with this question. I've seen on the boards people throwing around a question of, I got a core. Do I need another core? How many cores do I need to be competitive? How many cores do I need to have fun? What is your answer to this question of how many cores do you need for Game of Thrones?
My answer is I look at the single core versus multiple cores a lot like a sort of video game demo. These
Hmm.
days, a lot of times companies will release a video game demo where you can play like one level and it just gives you a taste and you're like, okay, I see what's going on. I understand the mechanics of how this video game works, but this is kind of boring because it's just the same level over and over. It's not the full experience, but
Hmm.
I get to taste it and see what it's going for. To me, that's the single core set. You get an idea, but it's not the full experience. It's really just a enough for a demo game or a couple demo games.
Neil, that's
I
a really expensive demo game. $40 for a demo game?
Yeah, yeah. I didn't say that it's not, but I think that it's certainly a valid thing to just get one single core, test the waters. If you don't like it, don't get any more. But if you
Okay.
do, I think you have to go to 3 core sets. Two just doesn't really cut it.
Okay. I'm going to have to disagree with every word you said, which is great. So here's my thought. You cannot have one core. You either get 0 or a minimum of 2. Now, I will agree with you that jumping in for $80 to buy 2 cores is kind of insane and then go, oh, I hate this game. So what I would say is borrow a deck from somebody. Make that your test run. Don't get one core. Because the problem with one core is you buy one core set and you play with it and you go, this game's kind of lame. Like I have all these Relore cards and Mel, and I never get them together, or I have all these Dire Wolves and Dire Wolf Synergy, and I never get them together. And of course, you're not going to get them together. You have one of all these random cards in your deck. It's not a real deck. You're not playing Game of Thrones. You're playing some Pale Shadow. There's a reason why the Kingslayer deck from Gen Con hasn't been trotted around as like, this is the best deck in the metagame. That deck is 100% irrelevant because it's not even really Game of Thrones. I played in that Kingslayer tournament, and it was kind of a miserable experience. It was really fun. I was playing Thrones. I was like, hey, cool, I'm playing Thrones. And then my opponent would be like, Danny, 2 dragons. And I'm like, hold on. You have 60 cards in that deck. Actually, I guess it wasn't. It was less than that. But how the hell did you get these out? I can't get my good cards. This is not fair. So I really feel like don't bother with one. It does not give you an accurate sense of the game. Borrow somebody's deck. Use that. If you're just buying one core set, and who are you playing with? Like, if you can't borrow a deck. So don't get any.
I think that that's what I was coming from an angle of someone who doesn't have a meta to go to. If you, of course, if you have people playing and can teach you the game and have different decks, but for just the, probably not our viewers, but the odd person out there who's just like, oh, this seems cool. You know, I like the show. I like the books. Let me give it a try. I think it's definitely the right way to get a single core set to try with your friends who have no experience with the game.
Okay, so
but yeah, if you're really thinking about the game as a card player of other LCGs, of CCGs, then definitely borrow a deck and then go all in.
Yeah, I feel like it's a terrible board game at 1. Like, you're basically playing a board game, and it's not a great board game. But that's my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I also disagree with you. I think 2 is reasonable. 2 will not get you an ultra competitive deck. You won't be able to play like Baratheon Fealty because you're just missing too many cards. But you could play like a Greyjoy Lannister deck. Just put 2 of everything in there. You're gonna have 3 of a lot of the most important cards anyway. The reducers, things like that. You'll just have 2 Ashas, 2 Tyrions, and it's a worse deck. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's fine to start with 2 and make sure you want to go all into that 3rd. Now, personally, I do agree with you. If you're gonna really play the game, you need 3. Like, it's just, you can't go to tournaments and complain like, I would have had you if I'd had 3 Dannys in here. People are gonna be like, what are you talking about? Just buy a core set. They're on sale right there.
Yeah, and that's my thinking, is that if you're reasonably sure you want to go into the game, if you've tried other people's decks and played it and are willing to make a purchase, just get 3 core sets. 2 is just, you're just going to be frustrated.
Yep, I'd agree with that. Get 3. So here's the bottom line. Summer's Coming's advice is just get 3 core sets already. Go sell some blood, you'll be fine. You'll still be able to be upright. You'll be all right. All right, so Neil, Worlds is coming, and FFG has done us this real disservice, I say. They've put out all these amazing games and then said, here's a World Championship where they're all going on at once, so I dare you to be good at all of them for the same weekend. Go ahead. What do you say? What do you think about this?
It's really tough for a number of reasons. If you're going to be spending the money, like I am and a lot of our friends are this year, to go to Worlds, you want to be playing in multiple events because it's crazy to go there for just a single event.
Yeah, fly from California to Minnesota, stay in a hotel to play one event.
Yeah, so you have to fit in multiple events, and then it's also a trick between, they have to schedule some stuff on top of each other. So I love most of the Star Wars games that FFG puts out, but they're pretty much all scheduled on the same day. So I had to make some choices there. And so I think that most people who do the LCGs will generally play more than one, or at least try more than one. And if you're considering making an investment to Worlds, it's very likely that you play multiple games. So this year I'm going to be playing in Star Wars the first day, Conquest the next day, and then Thrones 2.0 the last day.
All right, so then the follow-up question is, do you feel like by playing in 3 events, you're just worse at all 3, or are you able to prioritize, or is your brain somehow able to process and test for all 3 simultaneously? How does that work for you?
I think that I do a pretty good job of keeping the different games straight in my head and being able to switch gears. That being said, I've definitely prioritized the games that I think I'll do best in and really trying to test for those. So I'm really testing a lot for Star Wars. Gonna really try and do well in that. I'm keeping up my testing for thrones, making sure that I get a good feel for the game and won't embarrass myself. And at this point, for Conquest, I made a deck like 2 months ago and have played it once since then. And
Hmm.
that's just what I'm going to run in Worlds, and it'll probably lose every game, but
Uh,
maybe not.
I'm pretty sure you're gonna make the cut in that one. Pretty sure, Neil. I got your back on that one.
You never know.
I'll speak for myself. I play much worse when I'm playing multiple games. When I'm playing one game, I can really get into not just playing it well, but playing it at that next level where you have all the subtleties at your fingertips. You know, you've seen every matchup and you know every possibility of what's going to happen. So for me, this would be like Gen Con 2012. When I first got into the game, it was the only game I played for about 7 months straight. I went to Gen Con. I made the top 10. I was confident going in that I would make it. And I was shocked when I lost, even. Like, I was like, oh, I thought I might win this event, or at least make like the final two against Bruno, and we'd have to go head to head. And then flipping to Worlds 2013, it was a different scenario where I was trying to juggle Star Wars and Game of Thrones. And it was just much harder to have every nuance at my fingertip. I remember Game of Thrones, I felt much rustier than I had ever felt before. And I somehow made the cut and was kind of looking around like, how did this happen? How did I make the cut? And I'm playing Targ Hollow Hill, and my opponent is playing Targaryen Hollow Hill, and he says, "Oh, I've practiced so much for this mirror. How much have you practiced the mirror?" And I looked at him and I said, "I have not practiced the mirror one time." And he was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And he proceeded to slaughter me into oblivion, rightfully so. So it becomes much harder for me, at least, to really be next level, like cut level, when I'm splitting my focus. I can be good at 2 games or 3 games or 4 games, but I don't feel like I can be a top level player who has a real shot to win a major event when I'm splitting my focus. So I really have a hard time of saying like, okay, in this period, I'm just going to hone in on this one game. That was the one year where I was really split. I felt like I was one of the best Star Wars players in the game and one of the best Game of Thrones players in the game. And the bottom line is I probably wasn't the best or in that mix for either of them because I was splitting my focus.
Yeah, that's definitely a concern, and it might bear out this year with my world's results and the results of many people who play in multiple events. But it, in some ways, I feel like I've also learned more and understood different games better by playing multiple LCGs. That
Hmm.
the deck building of one game, the way it works, makes you think of new possibilities for the other one, or you understand better the way that you might want to treat certain timing windows. Or there, I've just found in this hobby that having a breadth of knowledge can also really improve your game. Maybe not in lead up and preparation for a major event,
Hmm.
but certainly in overall gameplay. I've found it really helpful to work on different games and see how different games work.
Yeah, I can agree with that for sure. For me, it's more the subtleties and even the big things. I'm pretty sure that after playing Star Wars all day, the first day, I went to the Thrones tournament the next day and I was really sick. I was so sick that I planned on dropping after every round. I just never dropped because I just somehow kept winning. But I know in the first game I said, "How many cards do we draw again?" And my opponent looked at me and was like, "Oh, awesome. This will be a nice, easy win. This jackass doesn't even know how many cards you're supposed to draw."
I feel like you say that before every game, though, just to try and psych your opponent out.
Sometimes I do that kind of thing, but definitely that was a real problem. And as I float around to all these different games that I play, luckily the digital ones just do it for you, right? There's no problem. There's just like a whole pile of cards pop up, and you're like, I don't know how many I'm supposed to have, but that's the right number. That looks good to me. That's a little harder when you have to draw them yourself.
Sure.
All right, Neil. So next topic. What do you think about net decking? So, net decking, for those of you who don't know what this means, is to go online, to find a deck, and to take it and use it. This is a pretty well established practice within all the card games. Magic is especially known for this. Of some pro wins a major event, everyone goes and buys that pro's deck and takes it to their tournaments. And this has definitely come into the LCGs as well. What do you think of this practice, Neil?
I have mixed feelings about it. I think that it really depends on the game in a lot of ways. Um, if you look at a game with a smaller card pool, whether it's because it's young or because of different deck building procedures like Star Wars, where you're only making 10 choices of groups of cards rather than lots of individual ones, I think that net decking is much less helpful and good because there are so few choices. I think that you should just, try putting something together and learn from that, especially with a core set. I do know that I think that, though, with a game like Thrones 1.0 towards the end, when you have thousands of cards and
Yeah.
you just don't know where to start, I think that in those sorts of games, or I would guess maybe Magic that has, a pretty huge card pool a lot of the time, that I wouldn't know where to start. So net decking can be really helpful in those larger card pools to give you a jumping off point, and maybe you make some changes to make something a little more unique to you, see how it works. So for me, it really depends on the game.
Okay, I think that's a fair point. I both agree and disagree. I agree with a lot of what you said, but I also think that net decking is good, and that it's especially good for newer players because there's two skills in games, and this is what I think people sometimes lose track of. There is deck building and there is playing the game, and these are actually separate skills. They come together, but they're definitely different skills. And so I think it's really important as a new player in a game to understand how a game functions. And I think you can oftentimes find that by net decking. You find a really good deck, you build it, you kind of figure out how it plays, and this gives you an idea of then how you can build your own decks. It also gives you an idea of like, okay, how many locations to events, to attachments, to guys are they generally running? It can be tempting for a new player to just sit down and be like, I'm going to take all the guys, and then I guess I'll have 3 rows in there. My deck's ready. Let's do this. And then they never can play anything. And so I think it's really important to emphasize that these are different skills, and being able to combine them is better. I mean, if you can build your own unique deck and play it well, you're going to be at an advantage because one of the deals with playing a game like this is information, right? If I know, like, you flip up Bara Fealty, and I go, okay, I know 57 cards in your deck. I think I can guess the other 3. Well, it makes the game a lot easier for me. Whereas if you flip up Stark Martell and you have all kinds of crazy stuff happening, I'm looking at you going, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. I'm just going to play my good cards and kind of hope this works out because I don't know what the heck is happening right now. It's a nice advantage to have. So I don't have that same stigma like the dirty net deckers. I kind of think it's totally fine, especially for newer players. What do you think about that, Neil?
Yeah, I agree with that overall. I think I think because it's deck building is a somewhat important skill to even just understand why someone's made the choices they've made for building a deck, that you really do at some point want to be building your own decks. And
Yeah.
so if someone, just buys the game and then just plays net decks for everything, I think because I enjoy deck building so much that I look at that and I feel like they're missing a part of the game. But I agree that net decking is perfectly great for new players or for giant card pools where you just don't have the knowledge or experience or time to figure out what to even start with.
Yeah. I think it's also important to say that everyone should be net decking in this way. They should be going around and looking at what the best decks are, right? You should have, even if you are not playing to play them, you need to have the knowledge to know, like, okay, this is what I will be playing against. Because you're never building in a vacuum. You can't just go in your house and be like, all right, this deck is amazing when it doesn't play against anything, right? there
Yeah.
is, there's a card pool that you have to interact with, and you can't build your deck to beat like Tyrell Martell and then go to a turn and be like, what the heck? My deck slaughters Tyrell Martell. I didn't even see it once. Okay, yeah, you're right, you didn't, because it's not the one of the main decks in the metagame.
Yeah, that's very true.
All right, let's move on then to the last major topic I want to talk about today, and that is one of the hardest things is evaluating your deck. Right, so
Yeah.
it's really really challenging to make a deck, because what do you do then? Right, so you make a deck and it loses 2 games. Do you break it down, scrap it, start over? Do you tweak a little bit? You make a deck that wins 5 games in a row? Do you go on Card Game DB and type up a big thing about how amazing your 5-0 deck is? Like, how do you evaluate? What do you do? What's your starting point, Neil? You build a deck, you play a couple games with it. Now what?
Oh man, this is definitely one of the toughest things, I think. And I think that to really have good evaluations of a deck, you have to really know the game that you're playing and the card pool well. Because what I mean by that is, I think that you can, with enough experience, cut down the number of plays that you need to tell if a deck has potential or not.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, when you test a deck, you should be running, many games of it so that you can really see over a long run, taking out the variance. You'll win some games because of a good draw, lose some because of a bad draw. Overall, how does it do?
Right.
But I think that with enough experience, you can start to see, like, oh, I had a really bad draw this game, but I can see that if I tweak this or if I had drawn this other card, this deck still has potential. I need to keep going with it.
Mm-hmm.
Or you see, like, I had a pretty good draw this game and I just still couldn't do anything. This is not going anywhere. So for me, the start is playing a couple of games and seeing if I can just have that intuition of, does it feel like there's more potential that I should keep working on, or have I seen this deck do its thing and it still doesn't work?
Yeah, I agree. I think one thing to be really careful of is being results oriented. And so what I mean by that is, your deck loses, it's garbage. Your deck wins one, it's great. I know a number of people who have sort of this mentality of like, okay, there's this deck in the metagame. We'll say Bear Fealty. It could be anything. And I played it once and I beat it. Right? I beat that deck. My deck is amazing. And you're like, okay, that's cool, but you need to think about how, what happened in that game, right? You have to be willing to toss out the corner case scenarios. And what I mean is, when everything goes perfectly for you and everything goes wrong for your opponent, you just have to realize that that game doesn't count, right? You can't be so results oriented that you just chalk it up 1-0, right? That game gets completely thrown out of the evaluation. You can only evaluate the games where it's like, we both had our middle ground game, and how did that go? My favorite is when you have your best case scenario and you lose. That's when you know your deck's bad.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to evaluate. My deck is doing exactly what it's supposed to, and it loses. That is a real problematic spot to be in.
Yeah, it can be really tricky with a game as complex as Game of Thrones also.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times it will be player error that causes you to lose. That you look back and you're like, yeah, the game went, 6 plots, but back on turn 2, I made this one decision or forgot this one thing, and I think if I had done that differently, I might have been able to win.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So it's so hard to know sometimes, which is why really the best way to test a deck is just run it a lot of times against a lot of different decks. A lot of people, I think, will talk about running it through a gauntlet, which is you and your friends come up with an idea of, these are the like 4 best decks that a lot of people are going to play, Bear Fealty, Targ Fealty, whatever else you think is really good.
Whatever else is out there, I don't even know.
A start kill deck, a little bit of everything.
Exactly.
And then make sure that you play a game with your new amazing deck against all of them. see how it does, even if it's losing a lot of games, play it through the whole thing, and then you can evaluate, okay, against these more control matchups
Hmm.
at these issues and otherwise. So you just got to play a lot.
Yeah, I mean that is really the easy answer, right? Is to play hundreds of games. I totally agree. I mean that's the best way, and a good way to play these games. You have to remember you have to keep in mind what you're doing, right? Am I testing or am I playing a competitive game? And it can be hard to find someone to agree to that, right? So like I'm still testing all my decks. There's no deck where I'm like, unless it's a tournament where I'm sitting down and I'm like, I want this to be as ultra competitive as possible, right? So what happened is I pulled my deck out, I shuffled it up, and I went, you know what? I forgot there was a change I wanted to make to this deck. We had played, remember, and I just
Hmm.
decided I didn't want Euron Crozai in the deck anymore. And so I had forgotten to take it out. And I
Right.
shuffled my deck, and I said, you know what? I'm really sorry I wanted to make a change. And the guy said, no. I was like, what do you mean no? And he's like, no. You've seen my house card. You've seen my banner. You're not changing your deck right now. You can change it after the game. And I was like, that's unfortunate. Now I'm locked into another game where the testing doesn't really matter because I've already made this evaluation that Euron is too expensive. Now, luckily, it worked out fine. I never drew him, and it was totally fine. But I was a little bit frustrated with this person. I'm kind of looking at him like, we're not in a tournament. We're just screwing around. It's not even a league player. I think we just pulled out two decks and shuffled them up, and you're going to be a hard ass? Okay, fine. But so the point is, try to keep in mind and try to find someone to agree that you're testing, right? Especially if you're testing for an event. And if you make a huge pilot error, you got to just back it up there and say, okay, you obviously would have won. I made an egregious error. You capitalized on it. I lost. But I'm actually trying to test the deck. Do you mind if we back up here and continue forward so I can see how the deck would play out had I not been a bonehead? And I do that occasionally. I don't do that very often, but every now and then I've done that. And it's usually good, it's usually really useful to see, and it also cements in your mind like, okay, that play is an error, and I can't do that. I have to make this play instead if I hit this situation.
I agree. I think that that is really important for most of the testing stages going into a big event, figuring out your deck and being willing to, say, oh, I forgot this one trigger. Can we just do it? Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. We want to test what happens when both of the decks work to their most. But I also want to say that I think it's maybe not quite as important, but it's also can be very important as you get really close to an event. If you've decided on what deck you're going to
yep,
play it as hard ass as possible and
yep,
allow no takebacks like it's an actual tournament. I think that that will really whip you into shape to not forget any of your reactions, any of your action windows, and be much more careful about how you play rather than the casual slipshod. Oh, sorry, we're at Worlds. Do you mind if we
yeah.
just go back a phase? No one
It's
will let
cool,
you do
man.
that.
It's cool. Go ahead, marshal some more stuff during challenge phase. I'm cool with that. That's not gonna happen yet. I totally agree. I think we used to do that in our Star Wars testing. I remember doing that where we about 2 weeks in, we had all locked in a deck and we all made an agreement. It was like six of us and said, "All right, listen, there are no more takebacks. There is no more anything. Play like you're at Worlds. Try to take advantage of each other as much as humanly possible, so that when you get to Worlds, no one will take advantage of you because you are ready for everything." And I think that is a really smart idea. Another way to evaluate decks that I found is be very concentrate on the fact that you have decisions. Like when you built your deck, you probably had decision points. Like, do I want to use this card or do I want to use this card? And as you're playing and as you're drawing that card, you should be thinking, would that other card have been better in this spot? And if that happens 5 games in a row against a variety of different decks, it's pretty obvious you probably want to at least test that change. It's easiest to do this with plots, right? So with plots, it's really
Sure.
easy to be like, all right, it's one of these two plots. I don't know which one. I've even gone so far as to say in a testing game, okay, listen, I realize this plot says this. Are you all right if we use this plot instead? Because I want to see how it would play out, and I think this is the right call, and I'd like to probably change to this. A lot of times people look at you like you're out of this world, and every now and then, especially if you know if you're both doing this kind of stuff, It's a really useful strategy. Be like, yeah, no, that's fine. Let's try it with that plot. Because the goal is not to win in that circumstance. The goal is for both of you to be testing your decks to get ready for a major event.
Yeah, a lot of times I'll have some of the cards in question, especially if it's a friendly game where you're not caring as much about, what's in your deck and keeping that secret from your opponent. Just having the cards that you're considering off to the side so you don't have to go through the mental image of like, what exactly does that card do again? But be able to look at it and be like, okay, if I had drawn that card right there, I would, be able to afford it or not. And it would have this sort of impact. It can be very helpful.
Yep, I agree. I think I really think deck evaluation is one of the most difficult aspects of card games, and like you said, a lot of it is piloting. It's so tough to decide even was that pilot error or not, and so you have to be hypercritical of yourself, even in wins. Right? Did my
Yeah.
opponent make a lot of errors? And there's been times like I know yesterday I had my 5-0 deck, right? Most of those games didn't count. I was watching my opponents. I had to stop somebody and say like, listen, I know that challenge looks good, but this is why it's not going to work. Just kind of think about that. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right. And it happened a couple times in one game, and then in some other games I was kind of tired and didn't correct the person, and it was just kind of like, yeah, okay, this game's not really going to count. That was a ridiculous play. No one would do that in a serious event. And so it's pilot error on your part, pilot error on your opponent's part. Are they playing a legit deck? Are they playing some random crazy deck? Like, there's so many variables in evaluating your deck. It's
Yeah.
really challenging.
It's really challenging.
So the bottom line is, play it as many times as you can. Be really willing to accept your own mistakes, and be hypercritical. That's really the only way to make a really strong deck. And don't get attached to results. Don't get attached to having to win. And if your deck wins, touting it as amazing and thinking of yourself as amazing. Just build a good deck, right? Don't put your ego in with the deck. If the deck is good, the deck is good. Don't attach your results and ego to that's really the best and most difficult suggestion, because most of us play these card games because we want to win. Having fun is winning, right? They go together. And so
It's a
when
big part
I
of
take
it.
a deck and it goes 5-0, I get those little chemicals firing in my brain like, yeah, Tiny, woo. And it's really hard to ignore them and be like, listen, chemicals, I need to evaluate this deck for real. Stop dancing around in my head. There you go.
I'm not sure that I have those same chemicals.
It might be a mental disorder. I don't know. It's very
You should
possible.
maybe talk to some professionals.
Yeah, it would take a whole team. They're kind of busy.
And then they wouldn't know how to evaluate you. They'd have to run a lot of different tests, take
Exactly.
their ego out of it,
Yeah.
make sure that they're not making any errors, you're not making any
Yeah,
errors.
it's tough. It's tough. It's real tough.
Yeah.
All right, Neil. We have so many houses we haven't covered still. Like 2 of them, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a quarter of the houses.
I think we should talk about Tyrell today. What do you think? We've got about 15 minutes left. I think we can talk about Tyrell.
Let's blow through them. We've been both playing a lot of Tyrell Banner of the Rose decks. A lot of decks using Tyrell in conjunction with a main faction. So let's see what we think of the cards we've been playing and the ones we haven't.
Let's start with that. Why do you think it is that we both have sort of gravitated toward this idea of using them as a banner faction rather than using them as the main house?
They have some very solid characters that aren't super tricky, but are just very good, efficient characters for their cost brackets, which often are cost brackets that other houses are lacking. Specifically, the 2, 3, 5, and 6 costs. I feel like a lot of times that's just what you'll see with Banner of the Rose is the Courtesan of the Rose, Marjorie, Knight of Flowers, and Randall,
Yeah.
because all of those cards are just very solid for their cost, strength, and icons, and so it just adds a lot of punch to decks that already have tricks and adds consistency, I think.
Yeah. I agree.
Why? What do you think?
I feel like I agree with a lot of that. Their cards that are not loyal are really strong, and can really round out the loyal cards in other houses. I feel like it's sort of the same thing with Lannister. Tyrion is so strong, and Jaime is so strong, that they just make great support houses. And the difference though is Lannister has oh boy, what's his name? The Mac Daddy, the King, the 7-drop guy.
Tywin.
Tywin. They have Tywin.
He's not a
who's,
king, but
yeah, he's really strong. Whereas, let's go ahead and look at her. Queen of Thorns is less strong. So Queen of Thorns is ridiculous on the top. Oh, she's the Queen of Thorns. That's why I couldn't find her. I mean, if the game goes great, right, and you just get to play her and use her, she's bonkers good. But in a meta where Bear of Fealty is rolling around, 7 cost for no come into play effect to get knelt every turn, it's not that great. Where somebody like Tywin is giving you 2 gold anyway, so he just has that effect always. Robert Baratheon is the same kind of thing where you have plenty of ways to stand him. You can play Ours is the Fury. Like when people kneel my Bob, I'm oftentimes like, yes, kneel Bob. What's the worst that could happen with my 2 gold? I don't know. And I just feel like Queen of Thorns gets stuck. She gets knelt and she gets stuck. And people just go all out to not let you win challenges with her. She costs a fortune. She's amazing. In testing, I was like, oh my goodness, this card is going to break the game. Tyrell's the best faction. And then as we start moving out of that, you're like, oh, yeah, she's really easily handled. And once she's handled, then now what?
yeah, I've noticed that it's also tricky a lot of times to have another worthwhile Tyrell character in your hand, even if you
Sure.
do trigger her reaction. I've seen many times people win challenges with her and then just nothing really happens. As opposed to she has the same stats as Danny, but Danny at least has insight. You can always draw a card.
Danny is
You,
everything.
well, yeah.
Danny is the greatest card in the history of the game.
Well, yeah.
Unless I go that far.
So the Queen of Thorns is solid, and as you get more Tyrell characters, I think that she'll certainly improve. But yeah, right now she's not that exciting of a 7-drop.
Yeah, and I also think as the metagame shifts, I don't think we're going to see Baratheon and Fealty being the deck for all time. I think it's
Sure.
a highly consistent core set deck that as we move out, I mean, even with the first pack and the cards that have been spoiled, that Greyjoy location looks really strong. I think people are going to play that. I think I think the meta will shift a fair amount. At least I'm hopeful that it will. So I guess our evaluation of her is she's probably going to be really good at some point. Right now is just not the time for her.
No.
And so this is what it comes down to with them not being the main house then. It's really hard to give up the 7-drop in your main house, right? You need to kind of have that as the anchor oftentimes. I won't say all the times, but oftentimes it really helps having that 7-drop being good.
Yeah. Yeah, it does really help. I think that there are probably ways, and we'll talk about it later, but I keep wanting to run Tyrell as the main house because of some of the other loyal cards, but
Sure. Oh yeah.
it's tough.
We'll get there. Here's one of the reasons why they work so well as the support faction. Randall Tarley is not loyal. He has renown. He's going to be standing if you have any sort of buffing effects. He's really strong.
This is one of my favorite card designs so far in 2.0 because he's just a strong, solid character on his own that has really good synergies and like small 2-card combos with other cards in the set. So you can try and build a whole Tyrell deck around him with growing strong and Heartsbane and all of these ways to buff him and get him to do multiple challenges. Or you can just throw him in a deck and he's a big body.
Yeah, he's just a renowned guy. A renowned guy who wins challenges. That's never a bad thing. All right, let's move on to the Knight of Flowers. Here he is. Knight of Flowers is another one of these non-loyal cards that's really, really strong. I mean, he's got 5 strength. If you attack, the only cards that can stop him are 6 strength guys, and there aren't that many. He's pretty much winning a challenge that he goes into.
Yeah, he's another solid, renowned character. He's a knight, which maybe will mean something later. He's a lord, so he can be reduced. Yeah, just another great, solid, big body.
Yeah, and I feel like 5 is very playable. Like, if you cost 5 and you're really good, you're a great card to me. 6 is where it starts moving to that because a lot of the plots, at least that I choose, are 4 gold, and so all I need is 1 reducer, 1 gold income location. Needing 2 reducers or 2 is much trickier. So a 5 cost guy gives me way more flexibility that I know there'll be no problem playing him. Randy, I look at him and I go, oh, I hope I get him out. But Knight of Flowers, no problem.
That makes sense.
All right, who's the 4 cost guy in this set? Is it Paxter?
Paxter Redwine.
I've never played Paxter. I've never used Tyrell as my main house. Like you've said, I've looked at it and I've said, oh, there's some stuff here, but then I always get distracted by other combinations. So he looks great. I mean, he's a gold producer. He's lowering the cost of your events, but I haven't had a chance to really use him and try to exploit him yet.
Yeah, I used him really early on, I think, in some of my first decks, and he's cool. He definitely helps your economy a huge amount. Giving you kind of 2 gold a turn. I mean, that's a pretty big bump when otherwise you have to reach up to Tywin for 7 costs to get that sort of income. But 1 icon also makes him a little less good.
Yeah.
So he's interesting. He definitely appeals to the trickier part of Martell rather than the punch you in the face like the last 2 cards were.
Yeah, I think I kind of look at him as like a bad version of Tyrion. Tyrion costs 1 more, 2 icons, stealth. He's pretty much giving you 2 gold minimum, maybe 4 gold a turn. It's not in the marshalling phase, so it's a little bit less flexible there, but like if I had the choice between them, I would take Tyrion, 100 times in a row before I took Paxter. So,
yeah,
I don't know. It's again like this is the loyal card. Like he's good, but he's not as good as maybe some other ones. So I don't know. Maybe I would change my mind on that, or maybe I will, especially if more events come out. That I'm like, oh, that would be great to have in this deck, and then you have him reducing them.
Yeah. So then we have the army, the Wardens of the Reach, at 4 cost.
All right, Wardens of the Reach. These guys, I mean, they're kind of blah, kind of bland. 4 cost isn't bad. I mean, they're really another reason to think about playing them as a supporting faction. These guys aren't loyal. A 4 for 4 is really not bad. I actually don't play them when I've been splashing them in. I haven't been using them because I don't have a lot of reach locations.
Exactly.
In the future, they could be bonkers, though. Imagine if they become like a 4-drop for 7 strength. That would be crazy.
Yeah, very similar to the Greyjoy army, where it's sort of soft loyal. Like, you can run it in another deck, but you're not getting the full benefit because you're not having those reach locations or the warships to buff the army. So if you're playing Mono Tyrell, they can definitely be pretty strong.
Yeah, we'll have to see in the future. Like we said, more stuff is going to help them a lot. Now it's on to what I think is the best card in the faction. I mean, Marjorie is just crazy good, so good. She makes challenge math so difficult. You're like, okay, I'll attack with them. What do you want to do? Yeah, I get to throw in 1 less guy than I normally would because I basically get to put Marjorie in any of the 3 challenges whenever I want after you declare your defenders. That's how I think of her, and that is so ridiculously strong.
It is. It's an ability that I think that as if you're a newer player, you just look at it and you're like, that doesn't seem that good. Like, she's 3 strength anyway.
Yeah.
But you're right. As the timing is everything, and she just messes up so many plans because either you forget about her or it forces you to overcommit or undercommit, and she can really help fuel all of the events that require you winning by 5 strength or more.
Yeah. And then she combos really well with a lot of cards. With Randy, she stands it. With Balon, she makes it so that everyone he encounters doesn't count their strength. I mean, there's just a lot of spots where you get to combo that. Like you said, the win by 5 events. She's very helpful. I might consider her the best support card in the game. She's right up there on her own, just like her base stats, blah. But her support ability is really, really strong.
Yeah.
She's just, I mean, she is one of the main reasons that I like to play them as a support faction. It's just, it helps with every deck I'm building. I'm like, oh, wait. If I could buff in the middle of a challenge, I would win it. Right? I could be Baratheon and never lose a power challenge. I have the red keep and her. It's +5.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. So good. All right, let's move on before I have a heart attack from how amazing she is. Oleana's Informant is really interesting. I like her a fair amount. Her stats aren't great. And like if you're going to play her as a 3-drop, you're not going to be happy. Having 4 gold left over at the end of marshalling, it's really dicey, right? It's like, hey, I got Oleana's Informant. Are you ready? And they're like, I am ready. So it's a little bit dicey. There's definitely some scenarios where she does work. So you have a pretty big board, you have quite a few cards, and you just say, I'm saving the money because obviously I'm not going to walk any harder into Wildfire. But those are, I think, less prevalent than what happens oftentimes, which is draw a card, wish it was not Oleana's Informant because I'd want a better card for that cost.
Yeah, she's a cool trick, but she's basically just there for her reaction and then becomes claim soak. I've never kind of pulled it off a good moment with her. Yeah. You had a pretty good moment in one of our games where you saved like 6 gold.
Yeah.
In your turn, you like didn't marshal anything.
Yeah, and it was that scenario. It was I had quite a few cards and Wildfire's coming, and so you're not thinking like, oh, he's saving back Oleana's Informant. You're just thinking he doesn't really have anything to play here, or he's waiting for Wildfire.
I figured you had a lot of events and just nothing else to play, so you were saving, 3 gold for events and then the rest for dominance.
Yeah, right, which is reasonable later in the game. And instead, and the crazy thing is, it's not like it blew you out, right? It wasn't like, oh, I crushed you, because it was more just kind of like, I got a small advantage out of her. It just,
yeah, you got another like 2-3 power, I think.
Yeah, I think it was only like 1.
Maybe.
I remember thinking, boy, this was close. Yeah. Like if Neil had screwed up and had done things differently, and that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to lure you into overcommitting on some challenges so that I could then drop her in, but you were really smart about how you blocked, and so then when she came in, the board still didn't push that hard. It was a really disappointing moment.
Yeah.
So she's okay, not a terrible card. Maester Lomies, I don't know. I don't like him that much.
Yeah, he's fine. It's about all I can say for him.
I don't play him.
He's fine.
I don't even play him. My theory is if you are going to be a monocon for 3, you better be real good. You better have stealth. You better have a really good ability. Simply, getting 1 more claim out of an intrigue challenge, that can be really good. I just haven't found that to be completely game breaking at this particular moment.
No, certainly not game breaking. The one thing that I do like about him is that he doesn't have to be participating to trigger his reaction.
Yeah.
That's the only saving grace that does make him a little more versatile.
Yeah. But the downside of that is it's only as a defender. So your opponent really is either walking into that, right, or they're getting tricked and you're doing growing strong or some trick to make it happen. So it just feels like it doesn't happen that often. His stats and costs are just not worth the ability. I just don't play him.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Where are we now? We've got right and left, I think, next.
Yeah, we can talk about them together.
So right and left are... So let's start with when you have them together. They're amazing. They're just amazing. A 2/3 Bicon that doesn't kneel to defend. That's really strong. But even then, you have to let them be first player so that you can defend first. They know what's happening, so they want you to be the first player. So then you have to be winning initiative. So it's like, even if you get right and left, that doesn't always work. Now, Wildfire comes. Are you really saving right and left and then killing Marjorie, Knight of Flowers, Randy, Queen of Thorns? I don't think you're doing that. So I look at right and left and say, best case scenario, they're okay. Worst case scenario, and not even worst case, but like 99% of the time, the card is terrible. A 2-cost monocon with no ability other than he can't be milked. Okay, no thank you. I don't play right and left.
Yeah, I don't play them either, mostly because you really want both of them on the board, which means you really want to draw both of them, which means you really want to put 3 of each in your deck.
Yep.
That's too much deck space for a mediocre combo to put on the board.
Yeah, I agree. And now, if you're playing a deck and you have 1 right and 1 left, your deck is bad. I'm not even gonna qualify that in any way. You have made poor choices. Go through the card pool, whether it's banner, whether they're neutral guys, pull out your 1 copy of each and find better cards. Your deck is not good if you have 1 of each. If you have 3 of each and you're making a fun deck and you're like, this, I know, I hear you. It's not the most efficient, fine. But if you have 1 of each, you have made poor choices. Pull them.
Yeah, completely.
All right, there's left. You're terrible too, left. All right, there we go. I insulted him right to his face. What do we have left? Just the reducer, I think.
We have the Courtesan of the Rose.
Oh, that's right. Love the Courtesan of the Rose.
Really good.
So good. This is another reason to banner them. Just getting to chuck 3 of them to lower your curve is so great. When I banner, it's like 3 Knight of Flowers, because 5 cost is very affordable. 3 Courtesans, probably 2 Randys, because he's a little expensive. 3 Marjories, and then I start going like, do I want 2 of the reducer guys just to have some claim soak? And you're at about 14 cards, and right there you have a really good banner.
Yeah.
Speaking of him, there he is. He's got the power icon. I really like him. I like all these guys. Like I said, when I banner, I usually put about 2 of them in. It helps your curve. It helps your flop a lot. They usually don't end up reducing all that much, but that's okay. A 1-drop dude claim soak. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the locations, because really the locations are one of the reasons to run this
Oh,
as your
the
main
locations.
faction. The Rose Garden. I mean, it's amazing, Neil.
Those are some nice roses. It's a big garden.
It's
but
reducer.
the only comment worthy thing is that it is a reach location. So just your 0-cost locations are buffing up your armies if you're playing mono Tyrell.
Yeah,
Not bad.
It's going to be good in the future. I think being able to have a monster army for 4.
Yeah.
All right, the Mander is more of a reason why you want to run Tyrell.
Yeah, the Mander and High Garden, as we'll see in a minute, really make me want to run Tyrell because they're both such good locations. And I think that, not to look too far into the future, but the new event coming out in the first chapter pack will really help Tyrell, because you'll get to search out and grab the Mander or High Garden to start all of the shenanigans that these allow.
Yeah, and just to be clear, that event, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a 0-cost event. If you win by 5 or more in a power challenge, you have to go in your deck, take a location 3 costs or lower, and put it into play. So what you can do...
I think it's a 1-cost event.
Is it 1 cost? Okay.
I think
that would make more sense. But you play this event in that first part of the window, in the reaction window. Then you get the Mander, it goes into play. It's still that part of the window. You now trigger it, you draw your 2 cards, and you're on your merry way. So it is going to be a really strong combo. The only hesitation I've had with this, and this is another drawback for me, is you're really telegraphing that you have to win challenges by 5 or more. And that's not that easy to do. Your opponents can often...
No, it's not that easy, but I think it can also force your opponent into tough situations,
That's true.
Well, I would really like to just let this go unopposed so that I can hit back, but do I really want to let him draw 2 more cards off of the Mander?
Yeah, that's true. I feel like the opposite is true also, though, that it causes you to overcommit on your challenges in order to try to make this happen. Now, like we've been talking about, there's a lot of buff. There is Marjorie. There's Growing Strong. And so those combo really well with the Mander. So I'm not saying the Mander's not a good card, but it's just, I look at it, and because I haven't actually played it a lot, I'm looking at it and say, I don't know. Theoretically, it doesn't feel as good as I would like it to be.
Okay.
but everyone else loves it, so I'm probably just wrong. So,
It's
so just
really
mark
good.
that one down. Tiny is wrong. It's amazing. Don't listen to Tiny Grimes.
I'll
There you
add
go.
it to the very large list.
There you go. The ever-growing list.
Yeah.
High Garden, though, is bananas, I think.
Yeah, the only downside is how expensive it is, 3 costs, and you have to spend a gold each time you use it.
Yep.
But you get a huge effect out of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as good against the Bicon, right? Because they can just do multiple challenges with them, but still. Oh, actually, do they stand? Yeah, they
Yeah,
stand it. But you can remove them out of that challenge that they need to win, right? So let's say it's a Baratheon deck with Red Keep out, and they do their military challenge, and you remove Bob, and now their power challenge, and they don't win their power challenge, and then the Red Keep kneels, and they don't get the draw off of it. Like, there's a lot of ways to make that combat math really, really difficult for your opponent, and to make them have to make difficult choices and way overcommit to a challenge that they have to win. And then you're like, okay, I won't take anyone out of that challenge because you just committed everything for that challenge. Fine, you get the one. Now you don't win the other two because you had to go so crazy for that one. So
yeah.
I think it can be a really great effect. Like you said, it's very expensive though.
The other great thing that you can sometimes do is it just says an attacking character. That can be your own attacking
Sure.
character. So you can create feints where you attack. You're like, you better stop this big military challenge.
Yep.
They block to stop it. I'll just pull Randall out of that and he'll go do a power challenge or something.
Yeah. You can also do some really, really tricky things where you bring in a stealth guy with someone else to be able to stealth the guy. Then you pull that person out of the challenge, and then guess what? You get to stealth another guy for another challenge. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of cool effects. I really like those. I call those the pro cards, where there's just 1,000 different ways to use this card. And I really like those kind of cards. This is the card that makes me go, why aren't I playing Tyrell as my main house?
I
Much
know.
more than Queen of Thorns.
I agree. It's a very cool card.
All right, well, let's move on to the events. We've got the one we've been talking about already in Growing Strong. And Growing Strong is just a really solid, good event. The problem is, though it's not loyal, it's not all that splashable if you're not running mostly Tyrell.
Yeah. It is up to 3 Tyrell characters, so you can do it just to buff Marjorie or Randall. It's really good with Randall because it's +2 strength for the phase.
Yeah. That is
Yeah.
really strong. Yep. And Marjorie's the same way. I don't know if it was against you or somebody else yesterday, but I had the greatest turn ever. So I attack with Randy. No, my opponent attacks. I block with Randy. I kneel Marjorie, buff him, stand him, win the challenge, get a renown. He does another challenge. Randall is now 8, right? So I block with Randall. I win. Actually, I have power behind the throne up. I stand Marjorie with that. Buffer, stand him again. He's an 11. He's now acquired 2 power on defense. And now it's my turn. I swing on offense. I get 3 power with a strength 11 dude on 1 turn. Throwing a Growing Strong in there. And it might just blow up the world. I don't know.
Yeah, that it's a very strong event, and I mean, if you are playing Mono Tyrell or happen to have a lot on the board, paying 1 to get 6 strength added to your board,
Yeah.
that's
crazy.
huge.
Yeah, that's a huge, huge buff. So good. I generally haven't been running it, like I said, but it is really strong. This card, I don't know. Like, this card is both the greatest card ever, and I just don't have room for it.
I like this card a lot. When I banner to bring in Tyrell, I'm usually playing at least 2 of this. I think that especially in a core set meta, it can add a lot of consistency to your decks. And especially if you're bannering with a faction that might not be the strongest or most consistent. For example, I was running a Martell Banner of the Rose deck. This helped me very nearly close out a game by looking at, my next 3 cards were going to be garbage. But after that, I have these events and stuff that could win me the game.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it can really just, it's such a flex card. Like, oh, I'm getting resource screwed this game. I need to make sure that I get some resources to play these cards I have in my hand. Oh, I already have my economy. I can't afford to keep getting flooded with economy. Move that to the bottom. Then you flip it over to the other side, right? I'm running a kill deck. I've killed all my opponent's guys. Guess what? You aren't seeing any guys for a while because you were. They're on the bottom of your deck, chump.
There are also just a
It's so
lot
good.
of other small combos you can do where, like, at the end of a round, you can do it on yourself so that then you can then ensure. I forget where I was going with that one.
Maybe get under the amount of cards you can have in your hand, so
Sure,
you don't have to
that's part
discard.
of it. You can also do stuff where you set up your opponent's deck to get off a really deadly hit from the tickler. You can set
Yeah.
up your own deck to do things like if you're running the Martell draw guy who looks at the top two cards, you get to choose what those cards are. If
Yep.
you're running the Stark location that gets you the top card, reveals it, and if it's a Stark character, you get to
Yep.
choose if that's a Stark character.
If your opponent doesn't have any cards in hand, you can ensure head on spikes fires.
Sure. You can also, if you're running Greyjoy, you can set up what you're going to pillage.
Yep. Or what you're going to get with a Great Kraken. I mean, there's just endless ways to use this card. It's another pro card. It's just are those ways that we talked about endlessly. They're all amazing.
Yeah.
Is that better than just having a dude? Because setup is a big part of the game, right? Like, would I rather have that, or would I rather have a cheap guy that I know I can flop and get out to a faster start, or get a character when I need them? It's just a really interesting card. I think where it's really going to shine is if Tyrell can be part of a choke deck. I think it would be, and I kind of hope they aren't, because I think it'll be too strong in a choke deck. That this will be like, I've got the lockdown going, you are locked out now, right? You're not only are you locked down now, but I can ensure you're locked out this next turn, and then I drew another one, and then the next turn. It's just going to be the most cruel card ever in a choke deck.
Yeah, that can be really rough. And I think it'll really help down the road with combo decks as well, being able
Yeah.
to set up your own combos. So
Yep. Or disrupt them even.
it's a great card with great art for zero cost.
Yeah, it's it's probably the greatest card in the set that I don't use, which is kind of funny. Now that we've had all this talk about how great it is, I'm looking at myself in the mirror and going, "Why aren't you using this card?"
I don't know.
This is the other card of why I want to play Tyrell as my main faction. Oleana's Cunning. Anytime you can tutor your deck for any card you want, it's bonkers.
Yeah, this is such a tricky card. The big thing for me is that it's two cost. Two cost is really tough, especially when it doesn't have an immediate impact on the board. Two cost for, ours is the Fury. Oh, yeah, because that'll blow out stuff. Two cost for Put to the Sword. Great, you're killing their best character, probably. Two cost to tutor even your entire deck for something that you probably play next turn.
Sure.
It's tougher. It's tougher to justify.
I feel like it's better than ours is the Fury by a lot, except for in the rare circumstances where you're able to just get a total blow out of it. I think it's much more universal. All you have to do is win a challenge. You're going to do that, and then you get whatever you want. You need the Mander, bam, you get the Mander. You need, Marjorie, you need Randy, you need whatever the board state tells you you need, you've got it. To me, that is
Yeah,
a
but
ridiculously powerful card.
you have it in hand, but then you don't have it on the board until next turn,
Right.
at which point your opponent changes the board state again and knows that you have it.
That's true, but Neil, it's all about playing for the future. This is a chess match, and we're not playing checkers here, Neil. This is chess.
Okay.
No, I think it's really strong. I definitely agree. 2 is tough. In 2.0, it's hard to just be like, I got 2 gold floating around, no problem. So I can definitely agree with that. It's not easy. All right, let's move to, I believe the last card in the faction is Heartsbane.
Mm-hmm.
Heartsbane's pretty darn good. I mean, you get +3 strength. That's not bad. Of course, putting it on Randy is ridiculously good. So the funny thing is, when I use it out of house as a support, I haven't been using it. I'm tempted to just
No.
throw one in there because I am playing Marjorie, Knight of Flowers, Randy, Courtesan. But do I really want to put it on that Courtesan? Probably not.
Probably not, but it's not the worst choice, especially since it's not terminal.
Yeah, so
But it is another Tyrell card that it's not loyal, but it's kind of loyal.
Yeah, exactly. But it buffs. So many buffs in Tyrell.
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness. So the future for Tyrell is going to be very interesting because I feel like they have all these bonkers cards, and like as soon as they get the one or two more cards, it just everything snaps together. I could easily see a stretch where Tyrell becomes, the deck to beat in the meta. I feel like that
I've
of
heard
every
this
house
before.
though. Yeah, every house feels that way. Like they're just missing this or this. But what's really interesting about the chapter pack cycle situation, where it's like here is a very small amount of cards, and if one of those factions who's 2 cards away gets 2 great cards in that pack, boom, they're the best house for a little while, at least until the next chapter pack.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be the case more than once, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that's what's so fun about playing these LCGs in the beginning stages. I remember with Star Wars, it was like that. You'd be like, oh, here's a new pack, and it has Yoda in it. Oh my goodness, Jedis are good now.
Yeah.
And it would just kind of come out of nowhere. Like yesterday, Jedis were garbage. Today, they're amazing. And it's a really fun place to be in. And as the card pool becomes more and more diverse and mature, that happens much less often. FFG has to really manufacture that to make that happen, right? Like here's a way over the curve card that sets up this whole archetype, and even then a lot of times people are like, that one card's great, but you know what would be even better in this established archetype if I just jammed it in there because it's so over the curve. Cool, thanks. But so we'll see a lot of big changes, I think, coming forward. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
So do we have time for a quick
It's gonna have to be quick. Let's do a quiz. Let's do it quick. I'm gonna randomly choose a card this week. Boop,
Whoa.
boop, boop. I'm dead serious. So look away because I am about to randomly choose one.
Okay. I should
It's
actually...
gonna be the worst idea ever. It is going to be. Whoops! Oh, didn't mean to scroll that. This card. Oh, it's not gonna be that card. That's ridiculous. It'll be that card. That's still easy. The things I do for love.
Ooh. Okay, I think I know this, but I'm actually not as familiar with the Lannister cards as I should be.
Yes. See, I haven't been picking Lannister because I was like, they're so easy. Everyone knows all the Lannister cards.
It's an event.
No, it is not. It's an attachment.
No, it's not.
It's an event, yeah.
I think that this is the one that costs X.
Yep, costs X.
And so it's play only if you control a unique Lannister.
I thought it was that as well, but it's not. It's Lannister Lord or Lady, which does imply uniqueness, but not all unique Lannisters.
Yeah.
And maybe there'll be a non-unique Lord. I don't see that happen.
It could be. So then it's action. Choose a character and return it to the player's hand. I think cannot be saved. That costs X, and so you pay the amount that the character's printed cost is, bounce it to hand, and really screw over your opponent.
Yeah, it has to be opponent first of all.
Okay.
And then you can save. It's just return to their hand.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a really interesting card because it can really blow people out. But man, you have to telegraph it unless you're Lannister, and you can have 2 intrigues with Tyrion and just get a pile of gold and then be like, yeah, I got this pile of gold anyway. Bam, total blowout city, you just lost. And they're like, I couldn't play for that because you had that pile of gold either way.
Yeah, the only bad thing about that is that then Hand's Judgment cancels it for free because it is X cost.
Yeah, that is always fun.
Yeah.
Oh, you spent 7 on that to bounce Danny? Cancel for 0.
Yep.
Ball game. Yeah, that can be really good. All right, Neil, what do you got for me?
You actually requested this, so the card is Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken.
I didn't request that. Come on.
I was playing my Martell
Yeah.
deck, and you were like, I know two of Martell's events. I don't remember the third one. You should really quiz me on that.
I meant not on the air. All right, let's see. I know it's an event, Martell. I think it's one cost.
It is zero
Ooh, it's
cost.
0. That's even better. It is if you lose a challenge, name a challenge type. They cannot initiate a challenge of that type.
Yep, two important qualifications you missed. You can only play it if you are not the first player.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's true.
And you have to be the defending player when you lose the challenge. You can't lose on offense.
Gotcha. Yeah, I knew that. I just didn't say that part. But
Sure.
yeah. So yeah, it's a pretty darn strong card. Before we do close, I want to say that Neil was running a really interesting deck with Martell, and he had all kinds of cool stuff on the board with Maester Coletti and the Paramar and Gaston Gray, and it made challenges really difficult. You're looking at the board and you're like, oh, so if I win, this is going to happen, and then this guy's going to lose this icon. I don't know that it was good, but it was definitely difficult to play around, and it's made me think like, maybe there's more there than the community has been thinking that there is.
I was one power away from winning that because you had the cancel for my Doran's game on the last turn. I was one power away. And if I had actually used my Gaston Gray way earlier in the game, I think I probably would have won, or it would have been different, certainly.
Yeah, you might have. I remember that moment where you forgot to trigger it, and we actually went back and was like, okay, do you want to trigger it? And it's like, well, maybe I want to wait until Randy gets more power on him to bounce him. It's a tough choice. I missed the window. Let's just move on. And then I was really careful because I had a We Do Not Sow. And so I always made sure I was first player. Even though I didn't really want to be first player, I was like, I need to be able to trigger my reaction to winning before he triggers his reaction to losing as the first player. I kill the Gaston Gray before he can now trigger it. So it was made for a really crazy. That was more like a chess match than any game I've played before. Because once you get really good at Thrones, when you start, everything feels like a chess match. You're like, I have no idea. It's so overwhelming. And once you've been playing a year, challenge is just that board that looks messy. It's not messy in your mind because you just know how it works. You're like, okay, this and this and this. Okay, no problem. But that game was just, if he moves his knight there, he can move his queen any of these 8 places. I don't know what to do. It was really crazy.
I'm definitely going to keep working on that deck and refining it, and hopefully we'll be able to come back with some more cool stories about it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Summer is Coming. We had a great time as always, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.